As I'm making this video, I've now been on the council for almost 2.5 months. Everybody says, how's it going? And it's better than I imagined in some regards and more complicated than I imagined in others. By that I mean the constituent services part is my absolute favorite. So much of what is good in our community is because of you, the people. The more that government can be a tool and help steering that to provide more opportunities, more security for people, then that is just one beautiful situation that we want to be a part of. That requires electing people who are suitable for power and engaged citizens. So let me segue into this. For those of you who know me, I have very little appetite to talk about national politics. I likely just check out pretty quick. I understand that there's a role and a time and a place. I'm not saying don't talk about national politics, obviously. But the way it's so set up and designed, part of me is like, what's the point, literally, of talking about it? What am I doing? Nothing. And it's so frustrating. But you know what? On local politics, you can do something. National politics, I'm just talking into the air. There's lots of important pieces and that everybody plays a role in, but for me, that's not my role. I'm gonna talk local politics. But here's the problem. I always say local politics. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. We are talking about feral cats and potholes. Utica, New York, we all need to be on the same team. Oneida County, even. Whoever's in office, we need to want them to succeed, because then we all do. We have limited resources. We are a city that is coming back in strides. This is such a pivotal, important time. It's really frustrating sometimes, though, because what we see in national politics, it's all clickbait. We all know it. You hear something on the news and it makes your blood boil because, you know, the other side is bad, stupid, whatever. Does the news ever say, all right, if you're mad about that, here's some actionable steps on how to change it in your life? No, they don't care. They want you to be mad and riled up, and it's working. So as we talk about politics here in my channel on a local level, if you hear me say Democrats or if you hear me say Republicans and you're triggered and you're like, see, knew it, don't do that. Because whatever we're doing in my level of government is not about national politics that you're familiar with. Now, we're all flawed humans, though, and that's not a trait based on what political party you're with. That is, everybody is on a specific journey trying to improve themselves, hopefully. So that's why it comes back to us as citizens needing to be engaged and know what to look for and understand what happens. What I do love that's happening in the media right now, though, is check your sources. Goes for local politics, too. If you see a post that I make, go fact check it. And I will gladly show you the receipts because I love that. That said, right now what's happening on the council is a world in which there seems to be just a piece of miscommunication constantly. And it is creating a serious amount of division, and it just shouldn't. So where I can nip this, I absolutely want to. I think the hard part too is I walk away from a lot of meetings just a little bit stunned of like, wow, why was that such an issue? Depending, like, name whatever one we want to talk about. Judging by some of the reactions, and I'm missing something. The more I hear things in meetings, and I'm getting better at trying to speak up of where I'm confused and need more support, like flood mitigation, for example. Councilwoman Samantha Colosimo-Testa really wants Flood Mitigation Taskforce to happen. I still have more questions. I felt like when there was a presentation done, yes, there was somebody from the county on board. From the city standpoint, our engineers have been saying, we already know where the problems are. Here's all the ways we've improved things in a city. It's better for us to be in the field than in a meeting. Also meeting on March 2nd. I wanted to know, hey, what are the deliverables on this so we can know if this is working or if it's not? Because at the point, there was this task force is supposed to have 18 people from the city get together and talk about flooding issues. But for me, it's like, what do they do when they get together? Are we going to map things out? Are we going to try to highlight where the hot spots are? Are we going to address what hasn't worked? Are they going to be a PR team for the people? Because I just need to picture it. And to not have that is very confusing for me because I don't want to inflate any part of government for unnecessary reasons, especially if maybe some of those measurables come up to be, well, the city's already on that and here's how they're doing it. Maybe the disconnect is actually in the city being able to communicate what they're doing and how they're on top of things. So I digress. I say all that because I think a lot of times in this conversation, from what I hear in the meetings, I do see concern, but again, I don't fully understand the reason of frustrations behind what they're saying until I listen to radio interviews, and that's concerning for me. It's helpful. I'm glad there is at least, the media is the fourth checks and balances for things. So one of the things that has been helpful is I'm hearing, I think people think I'm just trying to block legislation or make things difficult just because. It sounds like when I'm asking questions, maybe they just think my questions are so stupid that I must be playing games. I promise you that's not it. And I'm always confused why people would assume that of even me or anybody. I don't operate that way, but there's been moments in the council where I'm asking a genuine question and the feedback is, well, why does it matter? You're just going to vote it down anyway. It's like, no, I'm not, or else I wouldn't even entertain or waste our time asking questions.
There's no point to discuss it. They're just going to pull out what they want anyways, and that's the way
I'm going to want to talk about it a little bit more than that, though.
If we can call a committee meeting. You'll be the chairperson.
On March 2nd, the conversation came up to hash some things out. President of the council, Michael Galimi, said he had some amendments. He didn't have it with him in that moment, but his amendment sounded something I could get really on board with.
The actual task force would only meet by requirement twice a year, and then after any major flooding event as defined by FEMA. The second thing was, instead of having 18 people on the, up to 18 people, the task force would be reduced so that it was specific people. I think it was 5, the way I wrote it down, within the city.
It was said that now maybe Councilwoman Samantha Colosimo-Testa could bring those amendments forward, and we can work on that. And she said she would do that.
In worst case scenario, we don't have to do it tonight.
If you have them tonight,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll get the amendments. I'll make a motion for that. Thanks.
I left that meeting feeling a little bit better and then going to try to seek more information. But then I went on Bill Keeler's radio show. I think it was last week, Monday. I went on and explained things. But afterwards, President of the Council, Michael Galimi, called in. I was very shocked to hear what I heard. Let me just go ahead and play a clip because that will be easier.
Everything else that went on with the Flood Mitigation Taskforce, how, a couple of years ago, I called it. I said, listen, the committee, the 9 people in online committees is just a way to acquiesce people into full majority control. That's what we're looking at right now. And I know that's why there's a lot of tension between Councilperson Testa, Councilperson Aiello right now.
The tension is that we need to communicate.
And if you watched the meeting, I know there's a lot of people out there saying, hand claps for Councilperson Aiello for, quote, squashing the Republican garbage. That's a quote from Twitter.
I just need to address that I also responded to that person who is very supportive of me, and I said, don't attack Republicans, don't label them. I'm just addressing a behavior that I don't like on the council.
I was on the council for 4 years as council president. That council did not operate in a partisan way. We had an appropriate committee system. We had people who, even if 1 or 2 people came up with an idea, they properly vetted it. It went to actual groups that had experience, and we actually dealt with things, brought things to the floor when they were ready. This new system, just full majority control, and the excuses last Wednesday as to why they want to keep squashing this Flood Mitigation Task Force, squashing just the conversation and work that needs to go in to actually appropriately finish the legislation.
I said, yes, that's good. Maybe we can talk and learn more about that.
I think when I look at this, the flood mitigation, I'm glad you addressed overwhelming the engineer department. I think that was my biggest concern.
Even squash the conversation, not even the legislation. They don't even want to talk about it.
Oh, that's okay. I think that's a fair thing.
If you forward me your measurables and what you're looking for, you can always add them in. Please adjust.
If anybody else in the room, I want to work together on this. Willing to talk about more variables.
I don't understand how we were squashing it. I was under the impression that there were really good amendments that we had to hear, and he didn't have them ready. So I'm just so confused how the narrative went from that meeting where I left feeling better, I went out and got more information, it was in a good place to talk things out more, and then we are a Democratic majority just looking to squash it, and we won't even entertain the conversation. And it sucks to hear it from here. I'm glad it's there, so now I know how to address more conversations with him. But
3 meetings ago, we brought in the county, a representative from the county. They were like, this is the best thing Utica could do to make sure that there's continuity. The reality is, Councilperson Aiello, Councilperson Friend had some comments about us working with administrations, with the legislative branch. At the meeting, this is why I wanted to come on the radio. At the meeting, I said it. I said, listen, if the majority wants this gone, you got to own it and get rid of it.
I don't want it gone. I want to understand it, okay?
Room. Get the legislation right. Pass it, because it's something we need to do.
I agree. We need to get together and talk things out. Love that. But I'm not playing a game. Do you hear that tone in this idea that Councilwoman Friend, a Democrat, with Councilwoman Aiello, me, as if we're just trying to... I don't know. All I can know is what I see on a national level and how people just see the other side and you bad, you're out to sabotage me, you're out to get me. And that's all I know and see. So when they see me not understanding them, Well, they don't even see that. They see it as opposing is the problem. And then they start to apply intent without asking me what my intent is, right? So now we are creating this narrative where we're just playing a game. And you know what the problem is though? Even though I'm not playing a game, conversations like this cause division.
What's going on right now is the majority is squashing something the people are concerned with. The majority is squashing the people.
I don't understand also the idea that the majority is squashing people is one, I want to start taking the word majority out of it should not be synonymous with Democrats. We can create whatever majority we want. Whatever 5 people we want to get together and agree on something, we can do that. But it requires good, respectful communication, dialogue. You know what? On last Friday, Councilwoman Samantha Colosimo-Testa reached out to me and said, hey, let's talk. I messaged her and we're going to try to set something up for next week.
Okay, the majority's discussion at Wednesday's meeting was, we don't need this because we got it taken care of. Well, the people don't want to know that, quote, you got this. The people want to see legislation written down where there's accountability that you have it. Because we need continuity.
And I think that's where, with the legislation, I didn't understand what the deliverable is. Is this task force for accountability? That word isn't on there. If you tell me that's what it's for, I need to see it and understand it. And I think what happens too with these conversations is obviously President Galimi and Councilwoman Testa talk often, it seems. But I think sometimes, at least I'm guilty of this, I can talk about something. I can rehearse debates in my head. Then I go to address it to somebody and I'm like, how are you not on the same page? And I realize just because I've been thinking about this for the past 10 hours and I know the problem inside and out and your problem too. You know how we can be like as humans, and you forget somebody with fresh eyes, if they're reading this for the first time, do they know what I'm talking about? Did I miss some pieces of context and information that would help them get from point A to point B like I was once at point A? I think a big part of this is sometimes we can have conversations with our friends who understand your frustrations and who believe in what you believe in, and you get worked up but built up that you are so much more right and the other side might be so wrong, and you can think, what the heck, why don't they see this for how good this is? They must be out to sabotage it and have an agenda, and that's dangerous. Don't go there. If you are looking at an elected official who you think doesn't have your best interest in mind, go talk to them, but go talk to them with the intent to listen. There's absolutely a time and a place to rebuke somebody, right? And to call things out, but you need to lay the groundwork where you showed good faith and goodwill. We got to change the game. To whatever extent that what I heard on the radio from President Galimi, and I'm not even bashing him, like his concerns, man, if I heard that and I thought that about Councilwoman me, that's not good. Whatever I made him believe, I want to fix that because I'm very upset by his words, because I wouldn't want that in a council person either. The good news is I'm not the person he's saying in this interview. The trick is how do we communicate that? It sounds like we're actually on the same page for a lot of things. What happens between that and why, and whatever stories we can play over and over in our head without filling the other person in, we need to do less of that. And that goes for any member on the council. I think what we're doing is taking assumptions in politics from a national level and that fear that it creates, because it's not a productive conversation, it just isn't. But I think we copy and paste it onto local people and just assume the same negative intent might be happening, because that's all I can think of why somebody might take somebody like me and just assume I'm this jerk who wants to squash things for the people. Why would anybody do that? Not at all. I'm glad this was on the radio so I could hear him, because I truly care and I want to be on the same page. But wow, it's crazy to watch how this stuff can really transpire and what we assume about people behind the scenes. So we got to stop doing that. And here's the last thing I'm going to add. Yes, I understand that's what politics is and has been, but that's not who I am. I'm in this for a whole new wave of politics, and I hope people can get on board with that. So I don't fault people for being fearful and assuming negative intent behind my questioning. That is it. I will do a better job to lay the groundwork to know it is not a personal thing for me ever. We vote over 80% of the time together in unison, so for the issues that there are, we can work it out. I have the good faith in my colleagues that they're all there for the right reasons and the right people, and I hope to teach them that I am too. So that's the recap. I know we didn't actually get to talk about more legislation or anything specific, but I think it was important groundwork that we had to have for future conversations with the council. I think we need to start approaching politics very different. Always ask yourself when you're watching the news, what parts of this conversation might I be missing? Whose perspective is not in this? From a constituent standpoint, though, you can always call any of us and we will share our stance with you. We have the opportunity to be invested in our communities now more than ever. With all the ways that social media is completely frustrating, it's giving us a bird's eye view on our communities and all these spaces and community organizations that you would not have known otherwise. We can see a community moving and working, but we have to be intentional that we're doing it together. And that goes for me and you, for everybody. But that means whatever fears we have, you do need to do the work and talk to that person. Because the goal is to communicate with people in the way that whatever changes you want made, that they would be willing and on board. But right now, we hear something we don't like and we blow up. And that's creating such division. Hearing this radio show, my heart is sad that it got to this for whatever reason. And I want to know how we can fix it, because Uticans deserve that. In the meantime, it's what's best for Uticans. And what's best for Uticans is everybody who's elected to work together to do it. Because we got a lot of good ideas in that room. We have a lot of caring people, and that's the new era of politics we're going to lean towards. The way politics has been isn't working out, and it's not going to. I'm going to try to not take things personal, because I think they're just applying it to how things have been or ever were. So whatever you've known about politics, throw it out if I'm involved.